What is up, everybody? How are you guys doing today? We are talking about Elvis Presley again for the third time. We are going over the Elvis Presley Golden Records compilation album, and thank you for being on board. And we gotta get that picture of Elvis ready, right? We gotta get that Elvis. Elvis is showing right there. Elvis, my man, and all that. And so, like I said, I'm going to explain again, to everybody who might be watching this for the first time. I have the other two videos, so you guys can check that out as well. But in case you don't know, I am doing a compilation album on Elvis Presley. So for instance, I have two compilation albums, like it's a whole series of 3 discs. I'm basically, if I was a part of RCA Records, and I was asked to make a compilation album of the best Elvis Presley songs. Then what would I pick? And out of 60 songs, I decided, that's what I will choose. I will choose 60 songs in his catalog from his early days and all that. And yeah, and I thought, why not? Why not? So yeah, no. So here we go. You know what? Just gonna get my glasses going. Even though it's Elvis Presley, I'm gonna, represent my buddy Holly look today, and all that for some reason, And sometimes I just, I see better with my glasses, so hey. But I see things that I wouldn't see if I didn't have my glasses. So let me pull up the Elvis Presley Golden Collection compilation album list. And okay, so now we are on disc 3. So the first 2 discs went over his early days from 1953 to 1956. That was the first disc. The second disc goes over songs from 56 to 57. And now we are going into 57 and then ending it off in 1961, which I say was his prime. And yeah, so let's start it off for the first song for the third disc of the Elvis Presley Golden Collection compilation album. So starting at number 1, we've got Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, recorded January 15th to the 18th of 1957 at Paramount Scoring Stage. It was recorded in Hollywood. Guitar player was Scotty Moore. Of course, Bill Black, DJ Fontana, that, famous Elvis Presley lineup. We also have Tiny Timbrell on guitar as well this time, and also Dudley Brooks on piano. So a little bit of additional musicians, and of course, Elvis Presley's famous backing vocalists, the Jordanaires. And I've always, this was a song that I, of course, grew up with as a kid, but I think a lot of people remember it from probably maybe Full House with Uncle Jesse. And I actually remember it from there as well. That was the first time I actually knew about the song. Because I got into Full House before I really became an Elvis fan. And once I got into Elvis, I heard, this song, and I was like, oh, I remember it from Full House. And yeah, no, Teddy Bear as a song is really great. I've always, it's simple lyrics. That's what the 50s was, really, I think that's the thing we got to talk about. This was recorded in 1957, early 1957. So, in the 50s, songs were really just about, catchy lyrics that represent the joys of life. And a lot of those joys of life that they captured at the time was love, and there's really not a lot of 50 songs that isn't about love and all that. And as we can see too, of the expansion of music over time. When it comes to how mature songwriting was. And listen, of course, these aren't the most mature type of songwrite, like authentic lyrics. Or real as somebody as maybe a Bob Dylan or maybe even a Chuck Berry for that era of the 50s. But these songs were, just fun records. And that's what rock and roll entertainment is, Like art, of course, people want to be creative with it, but there's a point where you got to just be entertaining, and that's what this song is. Like when you see him do it, it was for like I said, it was recorded for Paramount, and you do it. He was doing it at the Hollywood. Oh my god, I lost my place. Of course I did. But yeah, this was for the movie Loving You. It was his second picture for Paramount, and this is for Paramount. And so yeah, no, it was a really a good movie and all that. And how's it going today? All right, yeah, hey, welcome on. And oh my God, I actually love Loving You. I think that's actually a really great Elvis Presley movie, and it has some great Elvis songs too. And yeah, no, it works pretty well. So also too, like when you see him perform it, if you go on YouTube, there is a video of him performing Teddy Bear, and that's in the movie. It's almost like kind of like when you see the audience reacting, it's almost like kind of how like American Bandstand, the TV series for in the 50s about where they promoted rock and roll artists. Like where like it was Dick Clark show and he would have specific artists come on. That's literally what this that scene is like in the movie. It's really just like, another version of what American Bandstand would be over time. And oh man. I remember watching this as a kid and just loving it. And I just was, a real, like I said, I was a real Elvis fan, but I liked something, but there was something about like the early Elvis movies, especially Loving You. Loving You as an Elvis movie, just I think in some ways it's not a lot of people remember it. A lot of people don't know that movie, but they know at least the song Teddy Bear. Like that's probably the most famous song from the movie. So yeah, like as I said, as a song, it's got catchy lyrics, so it works well. And yeah, I know I kind of went off a tangent just to kind of explain to you of what was going on at the time with Elvis. It was his second film. In 1957, he made two films, which was Loving You and Jailhouse Rock, which we'll get to that too. But yeah, no. So all right, here we go with number two, and that is "Don't Leave Me Now." Now, this was recorded in February 23rd, 1957, and like I said, it's got the famous Elvis lineup. Dudley Brooks is on piano, and of course, the Jordanaires on backing vocals. "Don't Leave Me Now" was actually used for the Loving You soundtrack, but it wasn't featured in the film Loving You. It was actually featured in Jailhouse Rock with a different version. But this is the version that like kind of I think is a better like studio version in my opinion. But also too, what I love about it too is just Elvis had a way with his voice that really just carried a song and carried, really, he really carried a lot of emotions with his songs. And when you hear a song like "Don't Leave Me Now," it just has this great, real, like, type of just rocking style. And especially like when he just starts with the "Don't Leave," and then like the band is able to get with their rhythm, and it's got that slow ballad, but it's a mix of rock too. So it's this ballad, but it's got a real nice groove to it and a good tempo that really can keep you on track of why you really can love Elvis as an artist. And yeah, no, so it was never like a hit for Elvis, but it was and never really like released as like a main single. But I've always considered it an Elvis classic. I mean, I don't know that many people, even like when I've talked to Elvis fans, nobody really mentions it, or I don't really talk about it as much. But you know, it's definitely a song that like would make it for me. I mean, some people might choose a song like "I Want to Be Free," and like I was going back and forth with what was I going to use, "I Want to Be Free" or "Don't Leave Me Now," and I just decided to go with "Don't Leave Me Now" because I feel like that's kind of represents Elvis a little bit more. Like I said, this is also to my opinion as well. You might have a different list of what you think makes Elvis up. For me, this album in some ways is almost like a concept album where it tells a story of what was happening to Elvis at the time when he went from Sun Records to massive stardom with RCA Victor, and releasing hits like Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog, being on Ed Sullivan, and then doing movies with Loving You and Jailhouse Rock, and this was the golden age for Elvis. 1957 was a great year for Elvis because 1956 was already, but he was already you know the biggest star at this point in 1957 is what I'm trying to say. Like, there was nobody that was bigger than him at that moment. Like, there really wasn't. So let's go to number three, which is I Beg of You. Now, this song was actually released later in like 1958 on a single with the hit song Don't, which we will talk about later, which is on that playlist. And yeah, but it was recorded early in 57. And yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely got a good like boogie beat. I've always enjoyed the tune. With some of these songs, like, they're not, of course, like the hits, but they're songs that you can definitely listen to and really enjoy and really get like a good taste of what, Elvis was about. And when you hear a song like I Beg of You, it's got like this nice, like, like there's like the back and vocals that kind of represent a little bit of like what a instrument could be doing, like of a boogie sound, like a bump, 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 bump. And so it is an interesting type of vocal techniques they're using on this song. And Elvis also too has this weird way of sometimes like teasing fans, I like to call it, with his voice, where he will do something very, very different with his voice, where it will be like he'll just go like, you know, doing something where it kind of sounds silly. Like, I think I talked about it with the in the second disc video, where we talk about how like for instance Tutti Frutti, when he performed on the Dorsey Brothers stage show, he does this weird thing with his voice where he kind of like, with the line, she knows how to love me, yes indeed. It's like, she knows how to love me, yes indeed. And like with this, I always remember hearing it when I was listening to I Beg of You as a kid. There's always like the goof at like around the third verse where he goes like where he repeats one of the verses and all that, where it's hold my hand and promise that you know and love me too, which actually I guess would be more the chorus, but the way he does it, he goes hold my hand and promise, and you're like a little like, whoa, that's a little weird, but I mean, he makes it work. It's a little strange, and like I always kind of find it a little bit of a goof, but is what it is. What are you gonna do about it? But it doesn't make me think differently of the song. But yeah, no, I definitely think it adds like a good. It's definitely like just like a song you can listen to in the car or on a sunny day. Uh, and it is interesting when you see the songs on this list, because a lot of these songs like really weren't heard until later in the year of 1957. So it's kind of interesting how, for me at least, when I always explored, Elvis, and I was such a nerd with the recordings of when he recorded which song, and when he recorded songs like Don't Leave Me Now, Teddy Bear. It's interesting that how it was recorded in early 57, and like throughout time goes on, you can see the evolution too in Elvis's voice, and the sound quality too of the production as well. How the sound will get richer and richer as time goes on. So yeah, no, that's something as well. So now we're gonna go on to our next part of the list, and that is One Night. And that is actually okay. One Night, I gotta say, One Night with You is probably maybe one of my favorite Elvis songs from the 50s, like especially like late 50s Elvis songs, because it's funny because it was released in 1958 because when Elvis was going into the army, you know, he was going to be away for 2 years, and it's not like he was going into the USO being a part of like entertaining the troops. He was actually doing actual army life where he was driving a truck and all that. So the one thing that Colonel Tom Parker did that was very genius was he made sure that Elvis would be remembered, and so that was another thing too. He wanted to make sure that there was enough music we had for Elvis that we could release the singles as time goes on. So it's like that was their way of thinking. That like we got to release some singles because he's gonna be gone for 2 years, but we got to make sure he's still relevant in the public's eyes. And so that's why they released a song like One Night in 1958, even though it was recorded in early 57. And same like with I Beg of You, these were songs that they were able to record and just use later as time goes on. And that was what was genius about Colonel Tom Parker too, is that they were able to record a lot of songs that they were able to use, in other ways that would help them, kind of, explore and help, just, improve on the Elvis Presley brand, So yeah, no. So One Night, I just think what I love about this song too is it's so bluesy. It's such a like the guitar riff is great. I love, like I said, I've talked about this before. I like the Jordanaires, but I love Elvis when he doesn't need backing vocals. When it's just him on a record, it's like that. I feel like is the real deal. And he's really singing the hell out of this song. Especially during the chorus. Yeah, no, 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 definitely. Like whenever I hear it, I just love the opening intro too. The bum, 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 bum. One night with you. Look behind you. It's behind, not now, Zach. All right. Yeah, no. So anyway, uh, now we are going to go on to number five. Number five, and that is "Loving You," which is the title song of the Elvis Presley movie, the second film. And Loving, like I said, Loving You is not the most well-known Elvis Presley film of the early 50s. Everybody thinks of Love Me Tender, Jailhouse Rock, King Creole. And I remember when I was a kid, thinking that, you know, in 1957 he only did three movies, and I thought Love, and I knew like Teddy Bear, I knew Mean Woman Blues, but I thought they were all a part of Jailhouse Rock. I didn't know they were a part of another movie. I thought they were all in the same movie. I didn't know that it was two different movies. But anyway, yeah, Loving You, I think it was an interesting film because it kind of showed like Elvis in a different light too, like still like an early Elvis. It's a fun movie. I think in some ways, because it's not commercial, I enjoy it a little bit more. I'm always like one of those guys that likes stuff that's not that commercial, in my opinion. So when I can ever get a chance to listen to somebody or see something that isn't that well known, it kind of sparks my interest a little bit. So now we're going to now we're just gonna like keep going talking about what you would call it Loving You as a song now, I guess, because I've talked a little bit about the movie. Now when I first heard the song, I always was never like a huge fan of it, but then I realized because it's the title song of the movie, I thought why not mention it in the compilation album, because I feel like it works well because, like I said, I want this to be a story like this compilation album that I've come up with. I want this to be a story of Elvis's life in some ways. I want this to be all these songs to tell a story of how he evolved as a performer and entertainer. And when you hear a song like "Loving You," it is a ballad, but it's a gentle ballad. It's soft. it's got a very, he's got such a, you know, a slow type of, style to it, very low sounding. I will spend my very, common. The guitar works well with it. And yeah, and the backing vocals are, not too in your face as well. Yeah, no. So, and Loving You also, another reason why I wanted to mention it too was it's on the Elvis Golden Records as well, the famous compilation album of 1958. And honestly, the one that I've realized is every song on this record is on my compilation album, because these songs definitely do. And I sort of did, of course, base, even though it's got the name Elvis Golden Records, I did sort of base that like these songs on here are part of, Elvis in his prime and what makes Elvis Presley as an artist. So yeah, no, it's definitely something that I want to, uh, talk about with to viewers, and really, focus on why I think Elvis is important. But when you see it, like, definitely I would say watch it on YouTube, like a clip of him performing the song. He performs it two times in the movie. It's a really good Elvis movie if you're interested in exploring who Elvis was. I think, is the movie still on YouTube? I gotta check if the movie's still on YouTube and all that. But because every now and then, they'll release a full movie and then they'll delete it because of copyright and all that. I don't know if you can find it on other streaming services, but out of all Elvis movies, it's probably one of my favorite Elvis movies. But yeah, no. And so let's move on to number 6. So we have Loving You, which was the title song of his second movie. But now we're going to be talking about his third movie. What was the title track of that? That's just a little known song called Jailhouse Rock. And Jailhouse, oh my God, Jailhouse Rock. What do we like? What do we not talk about when we hear that song? And I'm gonna mention Full House again. So Zach, if you're watching, you better come on board, because like I said, I got more into Elvis, when I was in middle school. But I watched Full House first before I became an Elvis fan. And Uncle Jesse is a huge Elvis fan. And there's the song Jailhouse Rock that is used in Full House for his wedding in an episode. And that was like kind of how I first really sad. It's sad for some reason. It's sad for me to admit that was like my introduction to Jailhouse Rock. But then when I became an Elvis fan, and I remember it was this was like 11 years ago. And it was, so it would have been, I guess, his 76th birthday, when it was, yeah. So I remember, and they were playing Elvis on the radio, and they're playing Jailhouse Rock, and I remember, I heard the song like as a cover on Full House, but when I heard Jailhouse Rock for the first time on the radio, I just was like, it's like, some of those like beautiful things that you first get introduced to, you really can't explain your reaction. That was sort of like the thing with this song, like, and then also then seeing the video after it as well, like, oh my God, I love the movie. I like, well, not just the movie, but I love that scene where he's like, just sitting, in the jail cell. It really is almost some ways. If some people don't consider that the first music video, then I don't know what is considered the first type of music video, because that really is almost like, like I said, of course it's a part of a movie, but that's really something you feel like you could have seen on like an MTV type of video. And it works so well too, with the other prisoners around. But when you hear that intro too of the and you don't know what's going to happen. And then Elvis's shredding vocals on it. Like, oh my God. This is probably the one of the best rock and roll songs of all time, in some ways, I would say. I would consider this probably, some people will like. I know it's a cliche to say this, but yeah, no, this I can see why this can be considered one of the best rock and roll songs of all time. I can understand why it's the best. It's definitely the best song of 1957, in my opinion. Whenever I think of 1957, I'm not gonna lie, I think of Jailhouse Rock. Like, if people had to ask me what I think of when I think of songs from 1957, five songs I think of are "That'll Be the Day," "Whole Lot of Shaking," "Rock and Roll Music," "Lucille," and of course "Jailhouse Rock." You know, like, this is just like, and also too, keep in mind, Lieber and Stoller, Lieber and Stoller, the biggest songwriting team of the 1950s that wrote Hound Dog, which of course was a hit for Elvis, but of course originally for Big Mama Thornton. They also wrote Love Me for Elvis, but they wrote Jailhouse Rock. This is a song like, and when you hear this song, you're like, yeah, Lieber and Stoller are probably one of the greatest songwriting teams of all time. And it's just like, it's rock and roll. That's what you can say about this song. I mean, the guitar, the drums, the just everything about it. The characters in this song, even the opening line, "A warden threw a party in the county jail." The way you see Elvis, say that line, when he's, just like, gonna swing down the pole after coming out of the jail cell, and he's just, tapping his hips, and he goes out, "Warden through a party in the county jail." It's just, there's something about it that's just like, there's something about this guy that's really cool, and honestly, I mean, everybody wanted to be Elvis Presley. That was the American dream. I mean, and it really was. And I think that's something to be said. Of when you hear a song like this, and yeah, no. So let's move on. I mean, like, I could talk about Jailhouse Rock for hours, honestly. And if anybody else loves Jailhouse Rock, comment below, or just like, I sometimes want to know people's reactions when they first hear a song, and this is always a song that I always think of. When I first, like, one of like I always will remember how, like, I really first really explored this song, and watching the music video, well, the video from the movie and all that, and yeah, and the characters in the song too, like, as well, and yeah, like, just the lines are just so great too. The warden said to nobody, "Don't you be no square. You can't find a partner, use a wooden chair." But yeah, and just fast. It's just like the rhythm works well with the lyrics. Like, I love lyrics that, like, you know they sing, like, in a very kind of fast paced, a little rushed, and you just sing it in a good cadence as well. So coming at number 7, we've got "Baby I Don't Care," which was another song for Jailhouse Rock movie. This was recorded in May of '57, and this is another scene that is well known in the movie, where he's sitting by the pool, and you got Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and DJ Fontana, and also on piano you have Mike Stoller in the movie, and yeah, no, it's just, and also too, yeah, like, Mike Stoller does play piano on the song, along with Dudley Brooks, but yeah, no, like, it's just like, kind of represents, relationships, and that, certain people aren't gonna be, hip in some people's eyes, where it's like, you don't like crazy music, you don't like rockin' bands, you just want to go to a movie show and sit there holding hands. But it's like, in his in the character's definition, he thinks, "Oh wow, this person is such a square," which means at the time, nobody calls somebody a square anymore. But a square, of course, is meant, to say you're lame, or like, "Oh, you're so basic," But it's like, I don't care, It's like, it's about love, that really is what it is. It's like, even though I think this is lame, or even though I think you're even though I think you just, you're simple, and I want to do more, you know, he doesn't care, because he has this affection towards this girl. And I think that that's another funny thing about it too. And also too, what I like about the song as well is, because Lieber and Stoller had very good way of just a good formula when they did songs that, the lyrics, were simple, the music flowed well, nothing seemed too, out of the ordinary, and songs at that time were a 2 minute, it was like, keep it at 2 minutes, keep it as catchy as you can, keep it juicy. That's what it was. One thing I do love is Scotty Moore talking about this in a documentary. It was a Hollywood documentary about Elvis, in Hollywood, and because the song, this movie was for MGM, and when they did, the song "Baby I Don't Care," they, I guess, like, it was a hot day that day, so the editors, I guess, for Scotty Moore, they, for some reason, I guess, needed to put black dots, I guess, in order to, I guess, I guess, like, some, like, type of color correction. So it looks like he's wearing sunglasses when they do far shots and all that. But when you go back to a close up, you see he's, like, not wearing sunglasses. But it's kind of funny that it's like there's when he's far away he's wearing sunglasses, when it's not, like when it's close ups you don't see him wearing the sunglasses. So that's like kind of like an interesting thing that was in there, and I'll always remember seeing that scene, and always remember Elvis in the green sweater. And Buddy Holly even covered this song too. But my favorite version of the song is probably Elvis's version. And yeah, it's just it's a simple song, but it works. And I like I love his voice on the song too, because the difference with Buddy Holly and Elvis was that Buddy Holly had more of a hiccup style in his voice, and Elvis had a little bit more of a a lower type of voice, and that could kind of get to that, like, this type of seducing voice, and he definitely has that on this song. It's it, and I love the way he just can just go all at it too, where he goes like and sit there holding hands, like, it's just like, oh yeah, just like, all right, that works for me, coming at number 8, we got Treat Me Nice, which is the B-side, recorded September 5th of 1957. And Treat Me Nice is, another Lieber and Stoller song. Lieber and Stoller wrote most of the music for Jailhouse Rock, except Don't Leave Me Now, because, that wasn't really going to be considered for Jailhouse Rock. It was going to be more considered for Loving You, but they never used it, that song for that movie. But, Treat Me Nice is just a really interesting, type of song. You know, I just it's another song that just has simple lyrics, but the guitar works really well. Just like, it's when you hear it, it's like, it's an Elvis song, like, you can't go wrong with it. The piano, I think, is what makes this song work too. And it's just like, Elvis doesn't go completely. I feel like his voice doesn't take you on a complete journey like something like Jailhouse Rock, but it's still, it's it's simple. It works, and that's that. So that's all I'm going to say about Treat Me Nice. I don't really have anything else to really say about it. But and coming at number 9 is our last song from 1957 on this list, and that is simply Don't. And that is another Lieber and Stoller song, with, of course, the famous Elvis lineup, Beverly Brooks on piano, the Jordanaires on backup vocals, but also we have a Millie Kirkham who also contributes as well to the vocals. And it's, like, as a ballad, it's very just, slow. You've got a very, it's funny when you think of Don't, of course, you think of another famous Elvis song with that title, Don't Be Cruel. And think of it in some ways as a slower version of Don't Be Cruel in the melody, but it's kind of got like that same type of melody, but very slow. It's definitely one of the most slowest Elvis songs, I think. But as a ballad, it works. I like the bridge of this song. I think that's what also works. And this was the first single released in 1958 and was another big hit for Elvis. And, this was going to start off, the year of what, what 1958 would bring for Elvis. And it was going to be a different year than 56 and 57 because, those are his years of stardom. And considering he was going to be in the army, it was going to be harder for him to kind of maintain, the image of him being, still the face of rock and roll, which, he still was. And, rock and roll in the late 50s had a lot of, scandals that people wondered, would the genre survive, with one of them, Elvis going into the army, but, Buddy Holly died in a plane crash in 1959, Chuck Berry getting arrested, Little Richard becoming a preacher, and Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin, and like Bill, really just winning his career overseas. There really wasn't, 58 and 59, rock was sort of becoming more of like this place for teen idols. But, Don't represents that Elvis is still on the map, and there is still songs that are going to make Elvis really popular throughout 58 and 59 that'll keep the Elvis legacy alive. And so that was number 9. But coming at number 10, we got Hard Headed Woman. And that was recorded in January 57. It was for the movie King Creole. And, fast-paced lyrics. This was not written by Lee Burden-Stoller. It was written by Claude Demetrius. And we've got, of course, DJ Fontana, Scotty Moore, Bill Black, the Jordanaires. On bongos, we have Gordon Stoker, who's a part of the Jordanaires. Same with Hoyt Hawkins. He does the cymbals. We've got, for the saxophone, we got Justin Gordon, trombone, Elmer Schneider. So this has a little bit more of a Dixieland feel to it. And that was the same with the Elvis movie King Creole. It's got more of a Dixieland feel to it, a little bit more of a horn section with that movie. So Elvis was definitely expanding more. And King Creole is sometimes considered Elvis's best movie. Because King Creole as a story actually was going to be a movie for James Dean before he died, where instead of being a sinner, he was like, because it's about like this underdog that's a busboy that becomes, pretty much, a big household name. For James Dean, it was going to be a boxer, but, when it came time to do this type of script, they're like, why don't we have Elvis do it? But, have him just be a sinner, And, even Elvis, I think in some ways really did want to act without doing music in, his song. Didn't really want songs in his movies. He really didn't. But like, for instance, like, Love Me Tender, Love Me Tender, he loved this song. I don't want to say that he hated like every song in this movie, but he didn't like the musical movies as much. And he realized Love Me Tender was a good song, but he didn't like the other songs that they had in that movie, which I'm not a fan of either. There's like 3 other songs and they don't work as well. He could have just had Love Me Tender, but because, Elvis is one of the biggest stars, and people, Crow Tom Parker felt, and the other people representing Elvis at the time felt that, in order to keep his image alive as a sinner, people are going to want to see Elvis act. I mean, people are going to see, when they see him act, they're going to want to see him sing, that it's as simple as that, and that's really what it is. And Hard Headed Woman is a fast-paced song. It's not my favorite Elvis song, but some people might say like, oh, like it's their favorite. It's definitely a signature tune for his number ones because it was a number 1 hit. So it was a part of that. So it has to, of course, be on this list. And now we are moving on to number 11. We are getting close to the end. We have 10 more songs to go through. And 11 is A Big Hunk of Love, which was recorded on June 10th of 1958 in Nashville. And this was recorded before Elvis went on to, like, around the time he was going to go for basic training, to start, his, army duty when he got drafted. And they booked a recording session that would get Elvis, enough songs to release singles throughout his time in the army. And it was recorded June 10th of 1958. And like I love, like, the fast paced piano on it. I really like. I think that works pretty well. It's a very rocking song. It was released for 1959. Yeah, and just a big hunk of love would do. Uh, and then that's kind of the same with Now and Then. There's A Fool Such as I, which was a Hank Snow song, and also recorded in '58 and was a big single for his time when Elvis was in the army. And he also performed this song live in 1961, because I talk about that. 1961 was the last time Elvis performed, like, in his early days before the comeback special in '68, before, pre, British invasion, pre movie career. This was Elvis's last performance in really, like his prime. So that's sort of why 1961 wraps up this album as well. But what I remember about, if you see the performance that he did, he performed, his last performance there was in Hawaii in '61, and the song Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I. There's this line, "You taught me how to milk a cow," which Elvis sometimes liked to goof up on his lyrics, and that's a total goof up on purpose, but it's funny, and it just kind of represents Elvis' sense of humor as well. So that ends all the songs that we're going to talk about with Elvis in the 1950s. But now we are going on to what the 60s would have brought with Elvis. So Elvis was worried because he knew that when he was going into the army, people weren't going to hear of him until 1960. Would he still be popular? And just so as a matter of fact, he was. He was more popular, actually, than he was ever before. Because for him, being in the army actually helped his image. Parents who were against him, who thought he was too vulgar, realized, hey, this is a decent human being. And that was Colonel Thomas Parker's, goal. Elvis really didn't want to be in the army. And it was reported, even though Elvis was, Elvis was a good actor. Elvis could put on a show. Elvis was, to the media, he would, show himself as, the happy, go lucky soldier, who's just doing his duty for the country. But, in all honesty, he was 23 at the time, and, he was just, he wanted to enjoy his life. He wanted to have, focus on his music career. Like, he really didn't want to be in the army. Like, he would say, when he was home, apparently he'd be like, oh, I'm sick of this shit, and being mad at Colonel Tom Parker, and all that, But, yeah, no. Oh, man. Elvis, though. Like, this, when you think of Elvis, like, at this time, I know when I'm like, Elvis, no, it's just like, honestly, Elvis really is a big part of the early part of my life, and that's why I kind of really wanted to focus on this video, and really just focus on what I love about his music. When you hear Elvis on, 1960 with "Stuck on You," the first single, and you're like, oh, Elvis still got it. He's still on struggle. He's still gonna do it. And like the Beatles. In some ways, it's like when Elvis did a song, it was like he could do no wrong. Like there are some songs that I don't love with Elvis. Like I'm not gonna be completely like, oh, everything Elvis did was so great. I don't think that way about especially a lot of songs from the '60s, but the songs from 1960, they, to me, have really good, rich quality. That's like another thing too. we're evolving in the time of what uh, recording engineers can do with their sound. And when we hear something like, you know, Stuck on You or the other songs that he was doing, was adding, like, because rock and roll was changing too. Rock and roll artists were thinking, wow, we can be more sophisticated as well. We don't have to just focus on the simple "I love you" formula in a song. And you know, with this song "Stuck on You" is a simple rock and roll song. He performed it for his Welcome Back special with Frank Sinatra. So it's definitely just a simple Elvis song with simple lyrics that it's like, okay, it's a rock record. Nothing that great, but or nothing that like essential. But then when we get something like on the B side, Fame and Fortune, that's a little bit more of a ballad. That he also performs on Frank Sinatra's show for that special, and the piano for the B side of Fame and Fortune works really well. The backing vocals I really do love as well, and Elvis's voice really captures like this very soft quality that's very soothing. But now we're going to talk about the songs that really kind of, where, like I said, he was shifting away from just doing simple rock and roll songs. And one of those songs would be It's Now or Never, when he did his single for that. That was like, his real big single when he came back. So you had Stuck on You, It's Now or Never. But we'll first talk about the B side of Mesa Blues because, like I said, I want to go in chronological order. So Mesa Blues was March 20th, 1960. And A Mesa Blues was written by Doc Thomas and Mark Schumann. And it's, definitely, it's got a blues melody. So, like Stuck on You, it's a rock record. But the difference is Mesa Blues is a B side when Stuck on You was the A side. Fame and Fortune was more of a ballad that kind of is like, this isn't rock and roll, but it's sung by rock and roll artists, so we'll label it as rock and roll. It's a ballad. But then when we go to It's Now or Never, that's something different because that was more operatic. It was more of like Elvis is kind of, Elvis did have this fascination towards opera. And when he does this song, he definitely shows more of that quality. Um, you know, um, I think it works well. I've always liked this song. The piano works well by Floyd Kramer. Bob Moore on bass. Bill Black at this time was no longer with Elvis. He went on to form his own group, the Bill Black Combo. But you still had Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana that were part of his records. Hank Garland was on guitar. For drums, Buddy Harman. Around this time too, Elvis was using more musicians for like the same instruments, so it wasn't like it was just Scotty Moore on guitar anymore. It was Hank Garland. He was using a little bit more studio musicians because Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, even though they were good musicians, they weren't considered classically trained. And I know at times, RCA wanted to use more professional musicians, but Elvis was like, this is my band. They're good, and we're using them, and we're doing it my way. Because Elvis, like I said, really was his producer. Even though Steve Sholes is credited as the producer, he didn't know how to produce a rock and roll record. It was really Elvis that knew that. And then when we go to, so now we're going to the last four songs. So number 17, I Gotta Know. So that's another. So it's not like, it's definitely got more of a it's not doesn't have that rock and roll style. It's more of like this ballad. I don't want to say polka, but it's just like this, like this piano style that's just more maybe has a little bit more of a traditional feel. I can't say it's really rock and roll. But yeah, no. And like I like the lyrics in it too. Like lines like 9 and 9 make 14, 4 and 4 make 9. Just very fast paced. Just like very fast paced thoughts. Almost kind of sung in like a conversation format, which I always like. So just very like it's simple, but it works. Like I know I keep saying that, but like that's the thing with Elvis with certain songs. They're simple songs, but they work. But that's the formula. People bought them up. That's what it was. So it was recorded April 3rd of 1960, and yeah, no, so written by Paul Evans and Matt Williams, and yeah, and then the A side for this was "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" And oh my God, is this a good? Is that would this be considered probably one of the best Elvis ballads? Yeah, I would say so. And it's what's funny about it is Elvis didn't even really want to do this song. It was more of Colonel Tom Parker who encouraged it because his wife loved the song, and Colonel Tom Parker, love him or hate him, was you know Elvis, he was the manager. He was the promotion guy. He wasn't really involved in the music. He wasn't a producer. He didn't really tell Elvis what songs you should do. He just like promoted them. But this was the only song he kind of encouraged Elvis to do. Like as he says it too. I mean, who knows if there were more stories of songs that he told Elvis to do, but he has claimed himself, and it's been claimed that this was the only song he really was like, oh, you should do this song, and it's it's traditional, and I think Elvis at times I think was a little bored with the song. He would joke with like I said with now and then there's such a fool. Yeah, now and then there's a fool such as I. He messes up the lyrics on purpose as a joke. Same with "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" Um, and then there's like a monologue in the song as well. But it's a song that kind of works well with type of like love, of good romance song. But it's a song that definitely at this point it's like Elvis is already the biggest star on the planet. But this song is able to still keep, him, like make people realize he still got it. 1960 is still Elvis's year. You still might have other artists that appear, but Elvis is gonna dominate the charts. Elvis is gonna still be the number one, singer for 1960. There's no other way about it. So and like yeah so what that was the thing like when we think of the 1960s we think of people like Bob Dylan or the Beatles, but let's be honest, the beginning of the 60s Elvis was still carrying that, like I mean 1960 as well, because of course 59 to 60 I always think, a decade starts in the first year, like of like, 1961, I would say, I guess, was the first real year of the 60s, like, 2021 for, the 2020s, it's really like that. But the one thing as well is that, you know, um, what works too is that, Elvis, like 1960, people, time really doesn't change really in a decade until like the early parts, like which as we can see with the British invasion in 64. So rock music, what was going on in the 50s was sort of still happening in 60, 61, 62, and 63. And Are You Lonesome Tonight is definitely more traditional for a rock song. Is it a song I can listen to all the time? No, but it's a song when you think of what makes up Elvis or like the best Elvis songs, if you're doing a compilation album, like I said, I know this is opinion, but if you don't have this song for a compilation album, then in my opinion, why the fuck you making an Elvis compilation album? This is one of the big songs. Even Watch Mojo, like, which is not probably the channel that people should always go by for, accurate information, or, go by that Watch Mojo. If Watch Mojo has said it, then, it must be right. But even they include that as on like the top 10 list of Elvis songs. But yeah, no, so that's number 18. And then Elvis ends that song with a monologue, which shows off his acting skills for a record as well. And now we got the last two songs. And this song, when we think of fun Elvis songs, Oh my God, we got GI Blues, which was recorded April 27th, 1960. Yes, Scotty Moore was on guitar, Tiny Timbrell, Neil Matthews, bass, Ray Siegel, drums, DJ Fontana, Frank Bode, piano, Dudley Brooks, accordion, Jim Haskell, Hoyt Hawkins on tambourine, was also part of the Jordanaires, and just a very fun song because GI Blues at this time, because when Elvis was coming back from the army in 1960, there was a lot of big things. He was doing the Frank Sinatra special. He had an interview. Everybody wanted to talk to Elvis when he came back from the army. He was this big, it was a big deal. It really was at that time. It was, Elvis was still the biggest star. And like I said, he was bigger in 1960 than he was in 56. So that shows something too, that him going to the army sort of did help his image. It didn't hurt his image, which he was afraid it would, because he wasn't going to be seen in the public for really 2 years. But yeah, no, GI Blues is just was a 1960 movie, which was just goes over like army life, and is it takes place in Germany, even though of course it was recorded in Hollywood. Elvis really only went overseas that time. Elvis didn't, Elvis wanted to tour the world, but because of his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, was considered, an illegal alien at the time, because he, didn't, like, because he was actually, like he was Dutch. He had yeah, like Colonel Tom Parker wasn't even really his real name. It was ah God, I'm blanking. I'm really blanking. It was Andres Van Keek. That's what it was. That was his name. But he went by yeah. Like Tom Parker is not at all in his birth certificate. That was just the name that he came up with, and he's not a colonel in any ways either. But going back to GI Blues, as a movie, it's just this fun army movie that's got a lot of Elvis songs in it. A real blockbuster of an Elvis musical that really put him back on the map. It was the first movie back, so it was his fifth movie, and it's perfect, works well. And all right, yeah, and I love like the backing vocals too. There was a documentary about Tom Parker and why he fled from the yeah, why he fled from the Netherlands. Yeah, no, exactly. And actually too, what's interesting too is one of the people that was a part of Elvis's entourage, the Memphis Mafia, Lamar Fike, talks about that he, I think, like went and realized, like I think visited Colonel Tom Parker's sister, and apparently he said that his sister looked exactly like Colonel Tom Parker, and nobody kind of understood why he just didn't why he completely fled and just lied that his name was that like why he didn't really admit that his real name was Andres Van Keek. I don't who knows. But when you see him, he doesn't seem like he's somebody who was from the Netherlands. He more seems like somebody who's like he seems like a Southern guy. But yeah, no. But GI Blues, yeah, fun song, and to end the Elvis compilation album would be the song that would be for 1961, recorded on March 23rd for the movie Blue Hawaii. I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. I had to include this song because, for the longest time I was like, I wouldn't even say, 1961 was his prime, and ended his prime. It was 1960, I used to say. It was from 1954 to 1960. But when you really look at it, when you see him perform in, Hawaii, when you see, the single, even some of the stuff he was doing in 61, the movie career didn't really start till 62, where he was doing 3 movies a year, or like, well, 3 movies were being released a year, because like in 1960 he did GI Blues, the movie Flaming Star, and then Wild in the Country was done in the end of 1960 to early 1961. And then Blue Hawaii was the film after that, and and this song, of course, is considered an Elvis classic, and for good reasons. It's got a good melody and definitely has that Hawaiian style with the steel guitar. Hal Blaine, the famous drummer for the Wrecking Crew, of the California musicians that were used. Like the Wrecking Crew, famous session musicians. Hal Blaine was, of course, one of the most well-known musicians from that list. And yeah, and he's one of the drummers on that song. And oh yeah, no, just you know, good melody, good beautiful song, and this it's Elvis. It's Elvis in a nutshell, really. You know, and so what do you think is your favorite song of Elvis Presley? And I'd really like to know. And okay, oh, let's see, what does it say? Wait, actually, what? Apparently, in the documentary, he was accused of murdering an ex-girlfriend of his in the Netherlands. The girlfriend was found dead, and Parker was gone. I never knew that. Really, really. I gotta check out the documentary. Do you know where that documentary is? But yeah, no. So I can't help falling in love with you. Really, kind of ends the Elvis prime for me, and there's really not that much more to say about it. It's a nice, it's a beautiful song that ends, uh, you know, a good type of Elvis period, and it's like, what was the next chapter going to bring? And like, I'll be honest, I love other Elvis stuff. Like, I love following that. I love the movie Follow That Dream. I love, even I like some stuff from Viva Las Vegas. I'm not gonna lie. Follow That Dream is a good movie, but it's really, when I think of even two Elvis movies, I think of the early, 50s ones, or even GI Blues, or and so it's I mean, everybody's gonna have a different take when it comes to it, but yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't see it. My cousin did. It was also. Oh, it was in Dutch. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, no. So I'm gonna end this video for now. Thank you guys for watching. I will have the link of the playlist, on Amazon Music. So if you guys just want to listen to the playlist, then and it'd be cool if you could listen to all three of them if you have the time, because you really, I think, could maybe even understand, where Elvis went from, having that raw sound from Sun to his really rich recording career when it comes to him doing it for RCA. If I could find it, I can tell you next live stream or leave it in the top. All right, yeah, sounds good. Okay, cool. And yeah, no, so that's it for today's video. Thank you guys. Hit that thumbs up, hit that like button, and hit that subscribe button. And also too, if you're into music or you know other people who are into music, tell your friends about this channel. And hey. And I do want to do more discussion pieces as time goes on, and maybe like kind of so if anybody is ever interested in doing like some kind of panel or and all that of talking about rock music and would be willing to have a real discussion, always you can let me know in the comments too. And yeah, no, so hit that thumbs up, hit that bell notification, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys. See you guys in the next video. Bye. Right, here we go, ending it live now, and I'm clicking the end stream because I don't know why I'm dragging it so long. Okay, goodbye for real.